and I'm hosting Thanksgiving for 35 people, so there's that.
Mike, your mic might be off.
What's that, my friend Ray?
Your mic might be off.
Sounds like it's on.
Hello?
There we go.
It just needs to be.
Thank you. Welcome to my podcast.
Everybody in Portland's got a podcast.
All right, so I guess we're going to
How many
go.
podcasts are there
Are we
about
recording?
comics, so we'll talk about comics tonight.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, sir. My Disney brother over here. All right, welcome to the 2019 107ist Candidate Election Forum. My name is Mike Coleman. I am former board member, former president, outgoing treasurer, and your host today. We're going to do this. It's going to run about 90 minutes with a break in the middle for about 10 or 15. We're going to do opening statements, then I have a bunch of sort of prepared questions for each candidate. We're going to do, interspersed through that, we're going to do something that we did last year called the Newlywed Game. So for people who are old like me, there used to be this game show where they would have newlyweds sit next to each other and they'd ask a question and the other person would have to guess, the spouse would have to guess what their spouse was going to say. So we're not going to guess what you're going to say, but you're going to write your answer down on a card and you're going to flip them over simultaneously. The idea of this is we get a lot of complaints from people that we end up with a lot of Me Too answers, right? And so you didn't know if somebody just didn't want to answer a question, if they weren't original, or if they actually felt that way. So by flipping over the card, then we all know. Some of them are serious, some of them are meant to be in good fun. Maybe they won't be. So we'll do opening statements. We're going to do Newlywed Game throughout. So there'll just be about like 8 of those questions. And then we're going to take a break. And during that time, audience members, you will be scribbling down questions that you would like me to ask, and you can hand them to me after the break. I like to do it that way so that you can ask follow-on questions and you don't spend time writing questions that are already going to get asked. So with that, let's get started. What do we say, 90 seconds or 2 minutes?
You can do whatever you want.
Let's do a 2-minute opening statement. Let's start at this end with Ray, and we'll just go across that way.
Good afternoon now. I'm Ray Terrell. I am a current board member for 107ist. I'm running again for the board. I currently sit on the TAFC, comms, and the IT committee, in quotes. I really enjoyed working on the board, the time that I've been on the board. Since I joined the board, I've had 2 kids, so there's been a little bit of trying to learn how to navigate that process, but I think I've handled that really well. And I think, especially in the last year, the skills that I have coming from the IT space, I'm a IT engineer at the airport, really work...
Principal IT engineer.
Principal IT engineer, that's correct. Really lend itself well to the organization. So we're kind of at again an inflection point here where we've continued to grow. We're going to be looking for a new home here soon for our fan lot and for our warehouse. And these kind of big strategic things are things that I do every day in my job. And so navigating these is something that I think I do really well. I would be honored to serve again on the board. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Sue Renfro. My pronouns are she, her. I am not talking into the microphone. For a paycheck, I negotiate project contracts for wind and solar farms, so everything from the permitting all the way through to COD and ongoing maintenance. So I'm running for a 1-year term, and my goal in this is to set up a volunteer coordination committee using best practices that we glean from not only groups within the 107 that have done an excellent job, recruiting, maintaining and uplifting volunteers, but also using, some best practices from other nonprofit organizations in order to ensure that we have the ability to maintain our pace as we grow, particularly going into a large capital campaign. That's the word I was looking for. Particularly going into a large capital campaign and making sure that those who are involved currently and are doing very, very excellent work have the help they need to continue doing that without burning out.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen, also CC for the purposes of the forum. I got started in the 107ist this year on the Community Outreach Committee. I'm the current secretary. There was a call for candidates, and in the call there was an ask for anybody with a financial background. And that's where I think I can add value to the organization. I've been in finance for over 10 years. I currently work in mortgage compliance within my bank. So I really am just here to serve the organization with my skill set. And that's about it.
I don't think.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kristen Gerke. Hello, everyone. Hi again. Kristen Gerke. I have been around for a few minutes here. I worked with Riveters as part of communications. I have been outside of SGs working with press stuff for Timbers and Thorns. I've been around a bit, and primarily I'm here because a lot of people aren't stepping up to take the roles on the board anymore, and I want to try and figure out why that is. So, there you go. Thanks.
To the point. I like it. Short and sweet. Hi, my name is Drew Picard. I've been on the board for the last 3 years as my first term. Back again, just because I feel like in 3 years you gain a lot of skills, and then in that next term you can really fine-tune them, hone them, and then really put them to great use. I am the chair for the travel committee, which is a very hard task to nail down in a couple of years. And we still obviously have a lot of work to do, and I would like to really fine-tune that more this term as well as just taking the knowledge that I've gained over the last 3 years to move us forward into this big capital campaign that we're putting forth and that we're getting close to being able to execute, I think, in the next few years. So there's that, and then just the wealth of knowledge that I have from serving with other supporters groups across the league. The relationships that I've formed just by doing the travel stuff has been really helpful for our entire board, I feel. So yeah, there you go.
All right. Groovy. What's that? No, they'll have 10 minutes to answer each of these questions.
Yes. No.
You can just interpretive dance, whatever you feel like. So I put out on Twitter a request for questions, and so I got a few. So we're gonna start with some of those Twitter questions. This one I'm gonna give to Drew since he has the microphone. It's really a sitting board question. Couple minutes, whatever, you know. So this question from Twitter was, going forward, how will you address Ironfront issues with current membership, as well as members who have not renewed or left due to difference with how the 107th board handled the situation? So I take this to mean there was a lot of turbulence through all that, and I think there's still some jagged edges. And how are we gonna repair relationships? Both, I'll throw that though in there as well.
Yeah, I think through the entire process of what we had to go through, the biggest thing was education of why we were fighting for it, what it was really standing for, what people were getting perceived notions of just through outside sources, and really just kind of correcting people's views as to why we did what we did and, you know, what our actual fight was. So I feel like a lot of rebuilding really just goes back into more education of, you know, okay, we're now at this point. What does that mean? Like, how are we then just going to take what we did and really make a standpoint on making sure that that standpoint stays the way that it is? That the Ironfront logo is not some aggressive, you know, kill Nazis logo. But I really think that that's a huge thing. We're going through and we're now working with the league, which is a great thing. So we actually have people on our side in league offices to help us with that effort. And I really feel that we just have a really great mindset of letting people know that we really just wanted to change what people thought about that logo in general and make sure that that's what people saw, not what people thought that they were seeing from what goes on out in the streets.
So the question though was, what are we doing to smooth over relationships that may have been damaged? I agree with a lot of what you said, but I didn't hear anything specific to that.
That's fair. As much as we can just say, hey, sorry that we had to, I mean, a lot of apology for, if we took a step too far. I don't think that we did. But if we did, then, a lot of apology and just say, hey, we're going to disagree at times, but in actuality, this is our main point, and we just need to be able to grow together and move forward. And whatever happened in the past, we need to just shake hands on it, give each other a hug if that's what we need to do. And honestly, I think a lot of it is we just need to move on. The front office and us have never really had that. I mean, we've always had a great history. Sometimes it's been rocky, but we're still getting through it. And we just have to use that precedent of, hey, we did this in the past as well. That didn't go over so well, but we're still here working together and we can still move forward.
Newlywed question time. Everybody take a card. This is a yes or no question. Well, it should take them 15 seconds to answer this.
All right.
It should take them 3 seconds, in my opinion. But if a person left the 107ist because they disagreed with our stance on the Iron Front, should we care that they come back, yes or no? All right. When Drew's still writing, Kristen, you're good? 1, 2, 3, flip. Yes, no. Always. It was a yes or no question. Fail. No, no. So who said yes? Ray said yes. So someone said the Iron Front flag is not it's not a political symbol. You guys shouldn't be flying it. Your whole thing was screwed up. We should invite them back.
Somebody said that.
Well, that was my question. Like, should we invite that person back?
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to recognize that the fight, while the Iron Front symbol was in the forefront, the fight was about much more than just that one symbol. The fight was about the idea that there is a code of conduct with the word political that is completely subjective. And we've got clubs in MLS, in NWSL, that do not want to do things like Pride Nights. They want to call it Unity Night, or just not have it at all. And then we were worried that that would be the next symbol. So is it the Cascadia flag? Is it the Pride flag that next season is banned because it's political? And so, I mean, while the one symbol was the Iron Front flag, we hope people would recognize, and the communication campaign I think we need for the coming year is that it was more than just that symbol. We're going to have disagreements with members, and that's okay. I mean, nobody's going to be agreeing with us all the time, but please recognize the work that this org does is much larger than that one fight. I mean, we're constantly doing things in the community, and so I would hope we'd be able to reach those members and say, look, you may have disagreed with us. Please understand the broader implications that we were fighting for. Come back, let's talk it out. Let's hear what you have to say, but please recognize that we're about more than just that one symbol.
Mary Sue, you said no. So since you're right there.
I did say no. The question was, should we care? And I think should we care that they come back? No, we have, I think the entire argument was that, we chose this political symbol to be the pinnacle that we went for to discuss the completely out of bounds code of conduct, yes. As somebody who has multiple axes that the fascists want to kill me,
Yeah.
I honestly don't care if you're offended by an anti-fascist symbol. Personally, that's great. Now if we wanted to invite them back, sure, let's invite them back, but say, we want you to be back, we want you to be a part of us, but you have to understand that this is and has always been an anti-fascist organization.
Yeah, everyday anti-fascist. CC or KG, either of you want to add anything to that? You don't have to if you don't want to, but always was kind of a weird answer.
Always is a weird answer. We should always care what our membership is, doing and talking about, and our membership is really what's going to help us move to the next level. And the membership dues helps us, give back to the community. That's where I got started, is the community outreach committee, and we can't do it without our membership. And it's okay for somebody to leave because they don't agree with what the organization is doing, and we should do what we can to educate and let them know what we're doing in the community, just like Drew said. But at the same time, we have to look and see, are we seeing a huge membership drop-off? Take a look at our numbers and see, maybe we're on the wrong track. I'm not saying that that happened. But, use the tools at our disposal to make sure that we are staying consistent with who we have always been and who we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting discussion because there's been Jeremy Wright, who was on the board for a long time. He was staunch in his belief that there are members that we just don't want, right? And I believe that. Like, if some dude's wearing a black and yellow Fred Perry, I don't want him in the North End. I don't want him in the 107th. So I don't agree that we always need to care what people think. I think, to your question, I believe Sheba can correct me if I'm wrong, but our membership actually grew during the Iron Front. We definitely gained more than we lost, which means the people that quit, see ya. All right, Ray. Oh, what's this? It's as if, what do you mean false queue? Oh, membership is actually higher than ever. August renewal and sign up was the highest ever for that month, which was in the middle of all that shenanigans. Okay, so Ray, this is another from Twitter, and it's more of a sitting board question, so I'll ask you. United Front was a divisive issue for many 107th members. How do you feel the 107th leadership handled the issue in regard to the Timbers front office and the league office? I mean, notwithstanding that we got exactly the result we wanted, did we do it in the best way we could, or was there room for improvement? And if so, what would that have been?
Being intimately involved in the process, I don't think we could have done it any other way. I mean, people heard us sort of start the messaging in June, but we had been talking about this issue with the front office since January, December. I mean, it was last year, basically. I'm looking at Sheba. This has been something that we talked about with them, hoping that we could deal with this issue, privately with the league, with the front office, try to make a way forward without kind of making waves. And the front office was unmoving. And so when you saw June come around, July, when we started to have matches, we had to bring it up into the forefront. And so, it got to a point where things got pretty bumpy with the front office because they're basically saying, oh, we appreciate your opinion, go to hell.
GFY.
GFY, exactly. And so we have to push the issue forward because we believe that it was important. I don't think we could have done it any differently. I wish it would have gone better with the front office, but we cannot control their side of the argument and their position, and they were unmoving.
Do you think that the average 107th member understands to the appropriate level how our relationship with the front office works?
I don't. No. So one of the things that being a board member that's a little bit of a bummer is people don't realize how much we work with the front office hand in hand on things. And so, people make it seem like it's this adversarial relationship, and at times it can be. But there's a lot of times when it is, we're working together to make something happen, big things, small things, That game day experience doesn't happen without the coordination between our group and the front office. And so, I wish there was times where we could sort of talk about that more. In some cases, we can't because, we have private details that can't be released. But it is not always an adversarial relationship. And, we get along well with them generally.
Yeah, I agree. Kristen, what are you going to hang your hat on as a board member? Like, what's your thing? Like Mary Sue's thing, I don't know, put words on it, appears to be the volunteerism, right? So what's your thing?
That's a really good question that I don't really have an answer for. I think there are people that have the skills to take forward the capital campaign and to work for Iron Front. Those are the two primary things that are hugely important in the next few years. And I think where I would come in would be trying to lighten the load for those folks that have those skills so they can focus on those things. So I'm ready to serve where I'm needed.
So you just plug into whatever socket needs.
Yep.
Okay.
Mary Sue was asking me what my skills are, and mostly it's snark on Twitter.
I think we have an abundance of that in the room. There's a lot.
I'm grabbing onto that one.
It's a good skill to have.
I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Okay, good. Let's see. I got to go back. Oh, I'm losing my questions. Cece, what does supporters culture mean to you? And how would you describe the culture of the Timbers Army and the Riveters? And how are they similar and how are they different?
They both have their own, their own projects, their own fights to have. Riveters are working on, growth of women's soccer. That's a big fight that, I think that is specific to the Riveters. And, we've got equal pay that came up during World Cup this year. Timbers Army, we don't have that on that side. We don't have equal pay issues necessarily. But supporters culture is really serving the community and sticking with their ethos. I mean, we've got team, town, TA, and Riveters. We've got our teams. And the second part of that is our town. So how are we serving the community? How are we doing outreach? How are we making sure that our regular community, people on the street, know that we're not just the crazy people in the North End yelling, screaming, putting up giant displays? Because I know that personally, I've talked to several people recently, close friends of mine, and they don't know about community outreach. They don't know what we do, how we fund underserved people, how we try to make safe spaces for others. And I think that's one thing that we have in common, TA and Riveters. So.
Okay, thank you. Mary Sue. Currently, much of the board work is we're a project-oriented board, right? And so being able to take an ownership of something and drive that to completion or fruition is a key component of being a successful board member. Can you just give an example of a project that, outside, either in a volunteer or a professional, that you sort of like, not just like worked on, but like you kind of the inception, the execution, the leadership, and the results?
The short answer is the Coyote Ridge Wind Farm project, which just went COD, which means that they're generating electricity. That's been basically my last 3 years. So an answer I can go into detail without getting into NDAs on would be I was the senior warden of St. David of Wales Episcopal Church, Harrison Hill, very long board name. It's the senior warden's essentially the equivalent to the board of directors, president of the board of directors, and the vestry is board of directors. Anyway, during my tenure as senior warden, we had to do what was called calling a new rector, which means we were hiring a new priest. That is something that takes a lot of time and energy because as part of the process, you create something called a parish profile, which has 3 sections. The first section is a history of the parish church. The second section is a vision of what you see the church doing going forward. And the third section is the skills template, which is basically the list of the job qualifications, what you're looking for in the new priest. This is something that is done by 100% by volunteers in the church, and it has to be done in 2 months. So I was the senior warden, so I was basically the project manager on that. I coordinated getting together the groups to do the 3 sections. I had to coordinate with the diocesan office, with the bishop's office, because there are some, legal issues involved. Because it is a job description, so we had to do equal opportunity, things like that. And we got it completed.
All right, right on. Found somebody, got them hired up.
I was critically ill at the time, so we got the parish profile out. I had one of my fellow board members stepped up and got somebody else hired.
Nice, right on. All right, newlywed game. This actually should have been following Ray's question, but I forgot I had it on here. Scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being perfect and 1 being the opposite of perfect. How would you rate our relationship with the Timbers front office? That would be the opposite of perfect. Everybody good? Look, Drew's still writing. He's actually drawing a dumpster fire, I think. I don't know are you doing 10 with like pointillism, or what are you doing? Okay, 1, 2, 3, flip. 7, 6, 5, 8, 8. So CC thinks, oh boy, this is mediocre, and everybody else feels like it's better than average. Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm not involved in that.
No, that's fair. No, but the idea though was like, what's the perception? Like, what's your perception of it?
The average is pretty bad in
Yeah.
MLS.
5, 6, 7, 8, 8. I can't do that math on my. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to.
Average is like
47.3.
7.25.
Okay? So let's everybody's gotten a question, so let's do another Newlywed Gang question. What is the most important thing, this could be, a couple word answer. What is the most important thing the 107ist does?
We get 2 minutes to answer this, right?
You can, yeah, we'll give you guys a little bit of time to think about that. That's fine. But you just think of like a big bucket heading, like. And it's not baked goods at the Fan Laden on match days. That is the second most important thing we do. All right, everybody good? Oh, Drew's still scribbling a little bit. All right, 1, 2, 3, flip. Grow soccer in Portland and worldwide. Give people a place to belong. Outreach, kind of the same a little bit. Support for Timbers and Riveters, so game day experience, the being supporters, and support our community. So it seems pretty evenly divided between sort of the community aspect and the game day experience aspect. Fair enough. Okay, we're going to go back to Drew with this question. Drew, I have heard from people that MLS Cup 2018 was an unmitigated disaster as far as logistics go. Is that an accurate assessment? How much responsibility do you carry for what happened in Atlanta, and who shares responsibility with you?
Wow.
And you should all get ready for a question just like that.
Yeah. A mitigated disaster, I 100% disagree. We were dealing with a team that had been in the league for 2 years.
Did the team put us in a parking lot with no cover and 40-degree rain when we had rain forecast for a week ahead of time?
Their team did that, yes. Yes, it did. And I tried to get as much cover as possible. I was told that being underneath those solar panels was coverage. They were not told that they were elevated for use in the middle of a rainstorm. They were tilted at the wrong angle. We were told that we were going to be covered, and we were not. Basically, what I can boil it down to is MLS Cup 2018 was a bunch of lies. We were told that we were going to be able to have drums until about 24 hours of entering the stadium. That was complete news to me, up until I literally cried in my hotel room when I heard that news. And then having to tell all the rest of you, that was my job that entire weekend, was putting out lies and fires that weekend. Their stadium security is a complete mess. I had dealt with it earlier in the year, and I had hoped that my relationship of being up there earlier in the year was going to help that. Clearly did not. We were dealing with an NFL stadium that doesn't know what soccer support is. It really was it boiled down to having to deal with people that didn't know who we were and what we wanted, and trying to mitigate as much of that for you guys and kind of put it behind a curtain for you guys. And it's not easy to do. Believe me, the next time we go to Atlanta, things will be incredibly different, even just for regular season. And I think that when we came in and showed them that we were serious about what we wanted and how it needed to go, they're listening now.
They pulled that same shit, though, in the playoffs this year, didn't they, with the drums?
To the other folks?
Yeah, I think that there was another club that posted at the last minute that they couldn't bring their drums in. It was the same situation.
Well, so the difference with MLS Cup and the season is that during the season, they can pull that because that is their stadium. MLS Cup, that is not their stadium. That is a league stadium, and I was told by league officials that things will be incredibly different this year.
So what would you have done differently to mitigate that? So, was there anything you could have done differently? Or do you feel like you did it? I mean, it's okay to say I did everything I could. I don't know how.
Well, if we're talking about drums, I'm on a security.
The whole situation with
the whole situation. A few things maybe. We tried to get pop-up tents for the coverage, but nobody wanted to set up 24 hours in advance and then leave them overnight in the middle of a rainstorm. I just couldn't get a company that would do that. Okay. Food trucks. I called and called and called, and then literally 48 hours before, I realized that the parking lot we were in, I couldn't bring in our own food trucks. I had to cancel all of the food trucks we had lined up and then try to get a hold of somebody to get food trucks in there for us. I mean, it was just it was very shadowed, and I was having to, our team that I had with us, we were just hitting roadblocks everywhere we went, and nobody would give us direct answers until usually about 24 hours in advance.
And I think some people were, I think people that were in Columbus were probably super spoiled by the experience we had in Columbus, because that couldn't have gone any better, honestly.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I think there's I think Atlanta looks worse than it probably was because Columbus looked so good.
Absolutely.
Perhaps, yeah. All right. Thank you for answering that, honestly. Appreciate it. Ray, in the past, there has been sort of an unspoken rule about disagree and commit as the board goes, right? And in the past, you've actually been pretty vocal on social media, at least on one occasion, maybe more, where you went out and said, no, man, I did not agree with the board on this. Do you regret doing that? Or do you think there should be more ability for board members to distance themselves from the decisions the board makes as a group?
I knew I was going to get this question.
Well, then
So
you
actually-
should have prepared an
I
answer.
actually thought a lot about it, yeah. No, I mean, I don't regret it at all. So for those that don't know, this is about the Sunshine Flag. A vote was taken. It did not go the way that I voted, which is fine. But I felt so strongly about it that I felt like I needed to come out and say, look, I disagree with this decision. I ran that by the board in Asana, and I got no disagreements with my ability to share that outside the board. I understand that it breaks precedent previously, but I'm not going to suspend my moral compass to be a part of this board. And if there are times that I disagree so strongly with the decision, I am going to voice my opinion about that, even if it means that I will be held accountable by the board. So censure by the board, dismissal by the board, all of that was on the table when I made that decision, and that's fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think disagree and commit is probably the wrong phrase to use, because I don't think that you were not committed to the decision. You were just making sure people knew that it didn't match your stance.
That's correct.
I mean, you did get in line behind everything the board was doing. More
Absolutely. And I think that's true. I did nothing other than make that one comment. I did nothing else to sabotage, do anything else for the rest of the season. I mean, I was in line with the decision. I just felt so strongly and personally about that decision that I needed to make it known.
Yeah. Do you feel like that ethos, that ideology that says, hey, you know what? Once we make a decision, we don't publicly go. We don't publicly talk against it. Do you think that's the wrong way to approach a problem, and that it should that whole idea should just go away?
I don't think it needs to go away, but I think people should be able to, if they feel that strongly about an issue, speak up and say something about it.
So if you feel like they should be able to say an issue if they feel strongly about it, but you don't feel like it should go away, like
I feel like this was an issue that's different than most of the things we talk about. I mean, this was an issue we talked about for months, and I mean, it was an issue that was very difficult for the board to decide. So this is not like your run-of-the-mill kind of decision. In fact, in talking back to previous board members, it sounded like this kind of issue has only happened a handful of times.
Now, you're right. I mean, in my 6 years on the board, there was nothing as contentious as what the Sunshine Flag was. I absolutely agree with you. All right, thank you for answering that. Let's go. Mary Sue, you're right next to him, so let's grab that. This came in from, where are you? Oh, you're at the top, because nothing's alphabetical. From Twitter. These are quotes, questions. So I opened up questions, and it said, why does someone who hasn't paid into the 107th for at least 5 years think they should be run and be elected? And why is Mary Sue running given she's always bragging about not being 107th? So how long have you been a 107th member?
I was a 107th member for several years in the beginning, and I have been signed up recently since October. Having said that, I have provided the equivalent of $25 every single year into the TIFO fund at the beginning, plus additional donations throughout, and merch purchase and all that fun stuff. I had some time where I had some disagreements with some folks, and I felt that I could not be a member at that time, and I gave up my rights to vote and things like that. I don't know, I'd say I bragged about it. I did point it out that, often that, hey, you know what, I'm not a member, and I still feel strongly enough that this group can and should do better. It's come to the point where I've decided that I can do that best by being a member and by running for the board and bringing to attention some of the issues that I have seen, namely that we have a lot of members, and I really think that we could do more to encourage them. And another thing is there are a lot of people in the North End who aren't 107 members and who do things
Absolutely.
all the time,
Yep.
and they have their own reasons. So maybe we also need to, talk with some of them and see if there are some ways we can get them to, join us either informally or formally.
So when did you let your membership lapse? Do you remember?
I honestly don't
Okay,
remember.
that's
I think it might have been while I was, for those of you who don't know, I had a very serious illness for a couple of years, and one of the issues with it was during those years I have some memory lapses. So,
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better now.
oh, it's awesome. I love it.
So, and you kind of touched on it, but we could just tease it out a little bit more. What was if you're comfortable talking about it, what was the issue that drove you away, and what has changed since that time that you feel like that you're comfortable becoming a member? And did you become a member solely so you could run for the board? Because you joined in October, right?
I did. I'll join.
Yeah.
October,
Okay.
Yes. So the issue was that there was some harassment issues that were happening within the North End. And I had been discussing it with some of the board members at the time and some folks who were very involved. And I was getting brushed off and told, basically the typical, oh, but they're such a nice guy, that should, you should really give them a chance kind of thing. And I am a person who cannot be a member of an organization that does that. So that was why I let my membership lapse. Since then, I think we've had some strides. We have plenty of room to improve, but I think we're incredibly less likely to let that slide anymore. And I did become a member partially to run. There is a Twitter thread out there where I was running down some ideas of how I thought the 107 could do volunteer better, and then in the middle of that thread I went, you know what, why am I just yelling this into the ether when I can actually help?
And I'll just say it now. I'll say it at the end. But thank you all to all five of you for stepping up. It's not an easy thing to put yourself out there. As those of you who have done it before know, it can be pretty ugly at times. So thank you for stepping up, and thank you for answering the question. Cece, do you think that you know enough about the organization, the history, the ethos, what makes it what it is, to be an effective board member?
So, what I do know is I'm not going to be sitting at the table alone. I'm going to have 10 other people that have more history than I do. They have more background than I do, and I'm not going to be sitting at the table thinking I know more than anybody who's been around more than I have. What I do bring to the table is my project management background, my strategic planning background, and my financial background, and that's why I'm here. I don't have pet projects. My husband right now is down in Monterey, and he's not here, but I made us move to Portland out of other cities because I wanted to be part of Timbers Army and Timbers culture.
Sure.
And that is absolutely true, but if you ever tell my husband, I'm going to deny it, but I made it happen. So, in summary, I don't know a whole lot, but I'm here to learn, and I want to give my skill and serve the Timbers Army, the 107ist, and the Riveters.
Do you feel like your skill set, I'm going to use the word generic because I can't think of a better word, but do you feel like that set of skills is applicable and it can be applied effectively independent of deep knowledge of the history of the organization?
Well, I guess my plan is I'd never presume to go in and say, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. That's not my job. That's not my outlook. My outlook is to be there where I'm needed and provide my opinion, my background, and as we move forward to capital campaign and finding a new home, that is where I can absolutely use my skill set and my knowledge and my background in finance and mortgage and business banking and all of that. I can set us up financially to be very strategic so we have long-term growth and long-term stability. So that's where I can absolutely be helpful.
Absolutely. We definitely, it's something we need as someone who tried to be a treasurer for a year, and that is a hard job. Okay, so KG, I have you as KG down on here. I hope you don't mind that. Susan. Susan, do we have a hooliganism problem in Portland? I'm kidding.
For the love of God.
For those of you who don't know, that was probably, I would say maybe your biggest regret from 2011 in the election process. I don't know.
You know, it really isn't, because I know what I said and I know y'all interpreted it differently.
What did you
So,
say? I just remember the word hooligan and a gasp coming out of the audience.
I remember sitting next to Nando and having to talk about flares,
Yeah.
which was super awesome, you guys.
So
Anyway.
so my actual question, it kind of goes back that you ran for the board many moons ago. What took you so long to try again? I'm glad you're trying again. I think it takes guts to go and run a second time. I ran twice. I know that Drew ran a couple times. Stefanzi's run a couple times. What have you, and so what took you so long to try again? And what have you been doing in the last 6 or 7 years that make you a more qualified candidate maybe than the first try?
Well, I'm running again. Well, okay, repeat the question for me.
You ran for the board many moons ago. What took so long for you to try again? What have you been doing the past 6 or 7 years that makes you a more qualified candidate than your first attempt?
Okay, so it's taken me a long time because of the two. So I put a question out on Twitter the other day asking why people, if they had considered to run for the board, why hadn't they run before? And I got the same answers that I've had, which it's a huge amount of work, and we don't want to take the bullshit from people on social media and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, the attacks are ridiculous, and like we shouldn't have to put up with that. If people are going to put themselves forward to do a huge job, we should respect them just for that, regardless of how we feel about them in any other way.
Is Donald Trump doing a huge job right now? And should we respect? I'm asking, right? Because like you could do a shitty job, right? You could have a big job and do a shitty job, and we should be able to criticize you for that just because you took a big job on?
Well, no, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you put yourself forward, there's an aspect of, it's difficult to put it into words in front of a whole group of people.
Interpretive dance is okay.
I'm not doing that either. No, I think there should be respect for stepping up and saying, hey, this is, the Donald Trump part of it has got me tripped up because it's such
Sorry, that was an extreme
I'm
example.
like, that's just clown show. Like, I don't think
It's
anybody
true,
up
it's
here
true.
is clown show. I think in the past we may have had one or two that have run for the board that were.
Yep.
But I think when people step up to the microphone here, it is absolutely terrifying. And they're doing it not because they want to be talking into a microphone in front of people, but because they want to serve the organization. So,
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that what I heard you say, and if I didn't hear you correctly or I didn't interpret you correctly, please correct me, is that you said they've stepped up to do a huge job and they shouldn't have to take bullshit on social media. And to me, that interprets as like, are you above criticism simply because you're serving a 3-year term?
no, we have, okay, I'm going to put it out there. There is a former board member who suggested the violent death of one of the candidates on this stage right now.
Yeah,
And that's
he's heavily
kind of-
medicated and he's an asshole.
Well, he was an asshole 5 years ago, and there were the same issues.
Yeah.
So why should we put up with that?
That's fair.
If there's criticism,
That's abuse though, right? That's
that's
abuse.
absolutely abuse, and that's the stuff that I don't want to see. Criticism is one thing, but that kind of stuff is not acceptable.
I think that's a perfect line, and thank you for clarifying. I absolutely am clear on where you're coming from now. Criticism, we don't like the way the board is working, that's one thing, but to attack a
Right.
board member personally based on a dislike of them as a human being, that's bullshit and out of bounds.
Right.
Okay, and I 100% agree with you on that.
Okay. As far as what I've been doing in the meantime, I've done a bunch of work with the Riveters. I've kind of stepped back from that. I also, at the same time as I was working for the Riveters, was doing a lot of editorial stuff for Prost America and the Cup.us and like 3 other
Yep.
publications. So there was a lot of movement going on, as well as having a job that I didn't know if I was going to have every day when I went into work. So that was super fun. But that's resolved.
But now you get cool shoes.
Yeah, I got cool shoes.
So tell me this though, are you still doing the stuff for Prost or any of that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Great. All right. Hey, that was some heavy questions. I really appreciate everybody taking them honestly and taking them head on. And so now we're going to do another question, a newlywed game question. And this is a 2-parter. This is the revised. I'll tell you what I really wanted to ask offline, but you can bring back one former MLS Timbers player. Who is it? Same for the Thorns. One former Thorns player, one former Timbers player. Yeah. And audience members, if you'd like beer, wine, soda, water, tater tots, burgers, whatever, you will need to go into the other room and order them because they are not coming in here, obviously. All right. Looks like we're almost there. Oh, Drew's not done. Drew is, oh man, hold on. Dun 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 da 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 dun dun. This is Jeopardy. Did you get it? Oh, you cribbed off of Kristen. I saw you. All right. On the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3. Adam Quarce and Amadine Henry. Henry was my pick. DK and Shim. All right. And then Zarek and I can't read the bottom one. Dag. Oh, Brigand's your daughter? And then Kenny, you disappoint me. I was expecting to see Chris Boyd on that card. Kenny Cooper and Vero, and then Nagby and Nadim. So it's interesting because for Thorns I had Nadim, I had Henri, and I had Boquette. So they all showed up there. So there you go. And then I didn't have one for the Timber. It was Quarce actually, I think, probably for the Timbers for me. All right, hey, thanks a lot. Let's take a 10-minute break. We're about a little over halfway through. Let's come back at 1 o'clock. We'll do 30 more minutes of this fun and frivolity. If you have questions from the audience, please bring them up and put them on my table. Go order a beer or a wine or something, and tip your bartender. First, just so you know, I've got a plethora of questions up here. There's no way I'm going to be able to get to all the questions that were submitted. I apologize. What I would say to you is the forums are still open. If I don't get to your question, please post it online. I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can, but I definitely will not get all of them. It was me, Drew. 32 and a half years of sobriety down the drain. Okay, so Shiva told me to keep it tight because I'm talking too much, but I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. I was at a board meeting, and I had bought 2 pieces of Hot Lips pizza, and I had put one of the pieces of pizza on the counter because I was going to eat it at the second half of the board meeting because that's when the board meetings used to go for like 3.5 hours, and I was going to be starving. I turned around and looked, and there was a board member guest, somebody who was as a guest attending the board member eating my pizza. He picked it up off the counter and mowed it down. Super rude. I'm not going to name and shame. I will leave it at that.
Do you want timing on this or no?
Let's just try to get through as many of these as we can. This is Newlywed Game question. It's 2 parts. I guess make it a ratio. Assume 100%. And of all the games you attend, watch on TV, what percentage are Timbers versus Thorns? So if you watch the exact same amount of both, it'd be 50-50. If you're like me, it would be like 95-5 because I just occasionally watch the Thorns. In person and on TV. Mine's probably closer to like 90-10. All right, flip. 92-8, very specific. 50-50, 60-40, 70 Thorns, 30 Timbers, 50-50. All right, thank you. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is eat a dick in a fire and die, you piece of shit. And the other is it should have never been gotten rid of. It's the greatest song ever recorded, and the Timbers should still be singing it. For the group, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being bring it back, 1 being it should have never been sung to begin with, what are your feelings on Onward? I don't write them, I just read them. All right, 1 to 5. 5 is it's the greatest song ever recorded. You should just sing it for 90 minutes. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, flip. Negative 10 million? How many zeros are there? I think that's 10 million. That's a 5. Drew and Ray love it. KG and CC take it or leave it. Mary Sue vehemently opposed. Everybody, let's just, okay, let's not. All right. Okay, let's go with CC. It is for all candidates. So I didn't say this earlier, but if you want to add something to an answer and it's new and unique, feel free to do it. If you don't say anything, we're going to assume you agree with the answer that was just given. CC, how do you personally create an inclusive environment in the North End?
Great question. I think it's all about how we communicate that we are inclusive. I mean, that's one of our ethos is we are radically inclusive. We need to talk about it. We need to bring new people in, new faces, let them know that, you're welcome here. No matter who you are, where you're from, you're welcome here. Except for if you're an asshole, get out. And I'm talking Nazi a-holes and all that. But yeah, just talk about it, bring new people, bring new faces who've never been. I'm trying to recruit my neighbors to come to Timbers and Thorns games because they've never been, and they've been in Portland a lot longer than I have. Let them know how much fun it is, and let them know what we do for the community. And it's not just all like singing and dancing, but that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Does that approach of sort of each one reach one, does that scale?
I think it can. I mean, our membership has grown. We're, over 5,000 strong and growing. Imagine if everybody just brought one new person to the game. If we, maybe even 25% bring one new person to the game, exponentially grows, Some people will like it, some people won't. But there's also, we have to communicate outside of our organization, and that's where outreach comes in. Reach out to the underserved communities. We just had the DACA Coalition in. They have a lot of needs, and they do need a safe space. And by bringing them in and talking to them about what we can do and what we can offer for their community, that's also another way.
Okay. I guess one of the things I heard in that question that I actually kind of glossed over was the word inclusivity. So, right. Drew, I know that you said in the forums that you're really proud of your work in the outreach and LGBTQ plus IA community. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think for me, as far as in the stands, the biggest way that we can do that is with symbols. I mean, this is the whole reason we fought for the Iron Front symbol, is because how do you show that you're welcome in a situation? What do people look for? It's for symbols. There's a reason we fly a 96 square foot pride flag in front of the section. There's a reason we fought so hard for this Iron Front symbol. There's a reason why you will never see, a Trump flag in the section, or just any flag that goes against what we're there for. If there's a flag that somebody wants to, a trans flag, please fly it, please. It's just, I think symbols are the easiest way for people to see that it's going to be televised, and that's what shows under these flags, you are welcome here. As far as outreach into the community and that inclusivity, I mean, yes, being in the Pride Parade the last 2 years have killed me, trying to set that up and being shot down multiple situations with that. I now have the information to fix that, so we're going to be good for going forward. But just being a physical presence in the community, like CC said, donating to the right causes. Unfortunately, that's what we're trying to fix in the Capitol campaign, is getting the word out that we do donate to all of these causes, because probably 50% of our members don't even realize how many places we reach out to and how much money we spread around. And I think that really just shows the places you're putting your money is the people that are going to support you.
Kristen, what's the biggest barrier to increasing inclusivity, both within our org and within the North End?
I think in the North End, it's space. I think that's a big problem. If you want to bring in a lot of people of color, there's not a lot of space still left with tickets open. So that's a thing. And as far as within the organization, we need to start reaching out into those communities. I know Drew's working on some things, but we need to do more.
So what is more? What could we do?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I mean, that's my full answer for that. I don't know yet.
Okay.
But I'm sure
that's a fine answer.
People with answers will step up if we ask them for them.
Yeah, I would have no idea because I'm not involved in those communities personally. So
right.
I would struggle the same way. So volunteer. Let's talk about volunteerism, Ray, and Cece. Actually, we'll go with Ray, but Cece, I'm coming back to you on this. Just be worried. Be worried. Not be worried. Be aware. So, do we use our volunteers effectively?
Do we use our volunteers? I think we have a core of volunteers that keep the organization running. Unfortunately, it seems like it is a very small but heavily invested core, and I definitely worry that we are running, we're burning people out to the point where they feel like they need to step away sometimes. And so, I mean, I've always been a little discouraged to see it's always the same people. It's amazing that we have such invested volunteers, but we've got to find some way to get other people into that group and get them volunteering on a consistent basis so that we're not running people ragged.
So I've heard this refrain, and again, my background is mostly in game day and TIFO, right? And so I don't know how it works in other committees, but in TIFO, I feel like over the last 5 years, we've turned TIFO completely over. Like I did nothing on TIFO last year, and you've got, I only mentioned Amber and Sean because in the room, Ina and Josh, right? And they've come along, and it feels like we're turning those people over. Isn't people kind of just moving on a normal life cycle of a volunteer?
Oh, I definitely think there's some of that, but I think when you look and you see who's doing some of the work in the organization, it seems like it's the same people. That, it's like, I say it at work, I mean, there's the same 20 people that are keeping this organization going. It's the same sort of thing here. There's 20 or 30 people that are consistently keeping this org moving forward. And if we lose one of those people, it's a huge loss. I mean, you've seen it on Twitter, you've seen it when Scott left the organization, the vacuum that left was enormous because that dude had so much organizational knowledge in his head. And it's the same sort of thing. If you've got 20 or 30 key volunteers that are making things happen, if they have to step away for a normal life situation or they just move, I mean, anything, you're losing such a huge portion of your organization's work that it's a little frightening. We're experiencing the same thing on the TAFC side right now. Clifford, he has a new job.
Down in Salem.
He's working like 60 hours a week. He was our primary administrator, I guess, from the TAFC side as far as running the leagues. We're losing him, and so it's the amount of knowledge he's gained over the last year. We're now going to have to fill that
So
gap.
is that a burnout problem or a succession planning problem?
I think in that case, it's a succession planning problem.
Scott Swearingen?
No, I mean, I think there's multiple issues with the Scott Swearingen thing.
Right,
I think
but that's not like
we over rely on organizational knowledge and that tribal knowledge that keeps this org moving. None of it's written down.
So it's a succession planning problem.
Or a knowledge transfer problem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of using the same phrase, right? Just basically, we don't document our processes. People eventually are going to move on. What do we do when they leave? The problem isn't they left. The problem is that they left and we didn't know what they did.
Or we don't know some of the backstory. I mean, the scariest thing with Scott and Nando, so we had them into one of our board meetings to talk about one of the issues we have with the front office this year. And the amount of knowledge that they dropped on us in that meeting that I didn't know working at this org for 3 years as a board member, but also for several years prior to that, not as a board member, was pretty amazing. And it's like maybe one or two people on the board knew that information, but it was backstory on merch stuff, on TIFO stuff. And it's like, how do you even know to ask those questions if you weren't in the room when that stuff is happening? And so it's more than just what did that person do? It's the history of the org. And I mean, that's one of the things that keeps being missed is it's not just, well, when Drew leaves on the travel side, we need to have a plan for planning the travel. It's all the things Drew learned doing the travel, not just the job, but, oh, yeah, Atlanta's terrible to work with. And, oh, yeah, 3 years ago, this happened to us in Atlanta. Those kinds of things we don't have a way to capture. And I mean, that's where losing just one member of your org becomes really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the knowledge that we lose when we lose board members is not, well, actually any longtime volunteer, because we have a lot of volunteers who have been volunteering for years on things like merch and TIFO and TAFC that have never been anywhere near the board. Cece, you said in the forums, and I actually have a quote, but I don't have my laptop open. You said, hey, we should maybe give people a patch or a scarf or a pin for volunteering. That, we talk about the history and the ethos, like that is antithetical in a lot of people's ideas to the way the organization has run in the past. Like, because it kind of has this punk rock DIY background where we have never escalated the individual above the group. Do you see a conflict there, or do you think that ethos is outdated, or how do you reconcile those things?
Well, there's definitely, so first of all, you know, when I suggested that, it's just something that I've done in the past, obviously not patches or scarves or anything, but incentivizing volunteers to at least get them in the door. And then once they're in the door, you can, you know, start seeing how they fit in, you know, what are they passionate about and where can they fit best in the organization. Now, as for, you know, is it against our ethos or the way we've done things before? Well, if things aren't necessarily working the way we want, if we're losing institutional knowledge, if we're finding big vacuums, we need to figure out ways to, you know, fill those voids. You know, succession planning is huge. One of the things I did bring up before is if we have a volunteer who wants to move to the next level, or we see somebody who would be great at, you know, TIFO, they're really super, you know, design savvy, you know, maybe we can have them be shadowing the people in charge. You know, punk rock and DIY and everything is great, but if we're not documenting processes, we're gonna fall apart. You know, that's where I think my strengths are. I work in policy and procedure. I write process and procedure documents all day long. It's boring and nobody wants to do it, but as long as we have something to help us. I'm not saying what we should do, but you know, as long as we have something to help the next generation and we're growing the organization and we're growing our base. And even if we have those volunteers coming in and shadowing and assisting, that helps with the burnout. The workload is spread. It helps with backup people. You know, if the main lead on a project is out sick, they have family issues, we have an automatic backup. So, you know, it's just thinking of ways to solve problems that can come down the line that we haven't seen yet.
So, newlywed game time. And I want to say, I was very heavily focused on Timber's Army in that last question, because that ethos is not necessarily the same for Riveters as it is for TA. I was specifically speaking about the TA. I know that the Riveters approach things differently in some respects than the Timber's Army does. So, just to be clear on that, I'm just speaking from my own background. Newlywed game. Should the 107ists have an end of year volunteer recognition award? Should we recognize and publish, you know, say the outstanding TAFC volunteer of the year, the outstanding TIFO volunteer of the year, the outstanding game day, you know, Riveters TA? Should we have those awards at the end of the year? That's a yes or no. All good? 1, 2, 3, flip. I let her get away with always. I'll let you get away with maybe. No, maybe, yes, no. Okay. Mary Sue, you've been patient because we've been talking about volunteerism, and that's sort of your bailiwick there. This is a question that came in from the audience. This was asked in the forums. Your 6-month plan places a significant amount of time commitment on participants and burden from existing volunteers, right? You're relying heavily on them to be involved in your plan. What can you do to gain the trust and the buy-in of those people that you're going to rely on in your plan? And then I'm going to add to that. When you put together your plan, did you consult any of the volunteers? Did you go to the org and assess the needs already, or is that really what you're focusing on in the first 6 months of your plan?
So that would really be what I'm focusing on the first 6 months of the plan. I have had discussions with folks, mostly informally. So far over the years, I haven't asked anybody's permission to share any of that details, which is why I'm really relying on the first 6 months kind of reaching out, first of all, because no matter how big your circle is, you're not talking to everybody involved.
Yep.
And so I know that my knowledge of the institution is very limited, and so I'm not going to just rely on, my 6 people that I've talked to, or 20 people, or however many people. I don't remember how many people I've talked to, so that's helpful. So it does have some burden at the beginning, and of course it's opt-in also. If it's completely I'm reaching out and saying, hey, here's 3 questions. If we want to go farther in depth, please contact me. We'll set up a half hour. I'll take you out to coffee and buy, or other festive beverage. And if a committee or a board member says, nope, we're all good, fine, or I don't have time, also fine. follow up maybe later, see if that's changed. So part of the reason why it is so heavy in those first 6 months is because I think to get a larger vision of what the actual needs are and what the successes are that we can celebrate will take 6 months. And then I foresee the next 6 months really being a lessening of, everybody's stress level, everybody's time commitments, because we will be bringing in fresh blood. We will be training folks up. We will be, setting up succession plans, really saying, okay, here's an entry-level gig, volunteer gig. And then from there, maybe they'll move into some of these more specialized ones, and then those folks will cross-train to, maybe one day, if as needed or as desired, step into a leadership role.
Yeah, if that's the path they want to take.
Yeah.
Some people,
And, it's one of those things where in nonprofit organizing, 5,000 members is a huge milestone. And at that point, it is, it's kind of a tipping point. It's you can either keep going upwards and onwards, or there's a huge dip. And one of the keys that has been noted in the research is to keep it going onward and upward, you really need to focus on encouraging new volunteers and getting them engaged and keeping them engaged.
Yeah, right on. Okay, thank you for that answer. And since we just talked about some of the challenges the organization is facing, why don't you all take your cards and write down your one-word answer to, or it could be more than one word, but what is the biggest challenge the 107th faces in the next, let's say, 6 to 18 months? Okay, looks like, Drew is still writing. I thought Susan, first of her name, was going to be, nope, she's still writing as well. I know it is November, so. All right, 1, 2, 3, flip. And we're going to go TAGA, Preserving General Admission in the North End. Okay, working with the FO. Growth in what regard? Membership? Okay. Momentum meaning?
Momentum meaning moving forward. We have this new influx of members, keeping that energy moving forward.
Okay, sure. That's great. Harnessing that energy, making sure they're educated, that sort of thing. Thank you. Permanent home. So the capital campaign, getting us out, because our lease ends in a couple years. All right. So let's see, what are we doing? We got time for one more kind of interesting topic. Drew, what do you think the Riveters' role is in advocating for equal pay for women's soccer?
The unfortunate part is because I don't get a whole lot of time to deal on the Riveters side as far as a board member, which I strongly don't regret, but I feel kind of hinders me a little bit. But I would love to. I'm going to spend a little bit more time in this hopeful next term doing so that I see equal pay for the Riveters very equal task-wise and what they can do with it as the TA did with Iron Front. I mean, that entire fight with Iron Front, the entire league was looking at what we were doing here in Portland. I mean, I was talking to supporters groups across the country, and they literally said, what can you do in your stadium? Because if you can do it, we're going to do it in our stadium. And the fact that we have that much power here in Portland, I think really solidifies the Riveters' ability to, unfortunately, it's like you can't just, it's a little bit of a different situation as far as what the topic is, but they have the voice and they have the push and the pull that they can really, really push that project forward and just say, well, what if we start protesting exactly like the TA did for the Iron Front because of equal pay?
So would you silence the North End for a big chunk of a game that was nationally televised, NWSL game? Would you silence the North End
for equal pay?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cece, I don't remember the exact quote. This came from the audience. So it says, you said that the Timbers Army doesn't have a stake in equal pay. Do you feel that the supporters of the men's game have nothing to give to that fight?
I think that with the Timbers Army, they have experience. Timbers Army's been around longer than Riveters. There's great experience on both sides of the table. I think what the TA can give is just experience and relationships with the front office. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolute shame that we lost a good player because she's a mother and can't afford to live here and play with a team that she wants to play with. And, you know, we're going to keep seeing consequences like that if we're not actively working together towards equal pay.
So what is actively working? So is the Timbers Army role then, is it limited to sort of behind the scenes work? Is it more active? How do you have any opinion on how that might actually look?
I think that would be driven by the Riveters because it's not incumbent upon the TA to jump in and say, this is how you need to do this. They're two separate organizations. We're very closely tied, but you know, it should be driven by the Riveters. You know, the Riveters come and say, hey, this is what we're looking at in your experience. What's going on? I know we've got Riveters on the board, but again, you know, it should be Riveters driven.
Mary Sue, is this a Riveters issue? Is this a Timbers Army issue? Is this a universal issue? Like, how do you see the issue?
I see it as a universal issue. I'm actually incredibly disappointed that the equal pay chant did not take off in the Timbers Army. I know there was some discussion about it, doing it in the 76th minute, at least during the World Cup. And honestly, disappointed it didn't happen. I honestly, I think it is important for us as Portland soccer fans. We have two teams that are paid differently. The starting salary for our beloved Thorns is like 16 grand, I think, this year. It's ridiculous. And I think we have a unique position as Portland soccer fans where we have two teams, we have a broad base. We should make some kind of public statement, some kind of solidarity statement. I can't say right now what that would look like.
So are you taking the equal pay? So for me, maybe I'm ignorant. Equal pay to me has been more of a national team issue, not an NWSL MLS issue. Are you kind of bringing it into both from club and country?
I am always club over country, so
myself as well.
Yeah, so that's where I look at it. I also look at it as a, you know, I want to see equal pay between the NWSL and MLS. I want to see equal pay within the city jobs. I want to see equal pay within private corporation jobs in Portland. I see, in an ideal world, I see the Portland teams getting to an equal pay, leading to a broad, sweeping equal pay in country teams in all over the world. That's a little bit of idealism, and I like looking at things ideally and then cracking down and figuring out how we get there.
Yeah, you don't make progress if you don't think big. Ray, I want to follow up on sort of from a business perspective. I could see a world where the Thorns could be played, you know, where the Peregrine Sports, the owner of the Thorns and the Timbers, could do something to raise the pay for the Thorns, right? They get 20,000 people a game. They get a lot more revenue than any other club in the league by a long way. Is that sustainable to NWSL, or would raising that minimum wage, NWSL only? I think the USA, the women's national team, there's no question they could afford it. On the league side, how would you balance the implications against the success of the league and the long-term longevity of the league versus doing the right thing? Because I think we all agree that the ladies deserve a pay raise.
I mean, it's an interesting question, given that I am not an administrator of sports leagues. But I mean, yeah, I think you're seeing this sort of play out. You're seeing some of these NWSL teams that, you know, are sort of hanging on, are not making the investments in the players. I mean, you're seeing are not making the investments in the supporting facilities for the players, I mean, you're starting to see that change, but for a long time you saw that kind of walking the line where you want to raise the minimum, but you've got to sort of keep these teams that are keeping the league together as far as, you know, a playable number of teams. You've got to keep them happy. And so I think you're starting to see that change over a little bit now, but I mean, there certainly is a balance that has to be struck here with some of those teams. If you raise the minimum too high, you're going to lose teams. And so, I mean, I think, unfortunately, you're seeing that play out much slower than all of us would like to see. But I think, you know, you're seeing it go up. It went up this year. It's obviously still ridiculously low. And you're starting to see some of the partnerships come about with the teams that really need it. Sky Blue moving over. I mean, that kind of thing is heartening to see. But yeah, until we can figure out a situation that gets those kind of bottom dwelling teams out of that mode, we're going to continue to see issues just
Yep.
from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy problem, but
Yeah, I mean, I personally think if it was up to Peregrine Sports, they would pay the players more money.
I would agree
I
with
think,
you.
you know, Merritt Paulson has done a lot for the NWSL. You know, he is having to fight an uphill battle with the rest of the league. And he's made an outsized contribution, I think, in some cases to the success of the league, but it's not something that we can just solve here in Portland. It's got to be a league-wide thing.
All right. So last newlywed game question, and then we're going to start thinking about your closing statements because that's what we're going to move into right after this. We will do them in the reverse order, the way we started. So Drew, you will be first. This newlywed question is, what will you do as it relates to the 107th Timbers Army Riveters if you are not elected? And that could be nothing, or it could be serve on a committee, or it could be whatever. So, you know, how do you see your involvement going forward if you are not elected? Apparently Mary Sue is writing a novel. She's now on her second card. All right. Are we good? 1, 2, 3, flip. You will, Ray, continue to work with org at tactical level. So TAFC, the IT stuff, I assume. Same plan, which is?
Which is work with the board to set up a volunteer committee. It'd be a little bit harder because I work with the board to set up the volunteer coordination committee. It would be harder because I wouldn't have a seat on the board and have some of that access, but hey.
Okay. CC, sounds like you'd keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what I'm doing. If I'm not on the board, I've got the knowledge. Use me. I'm here.
I'm trying. You still jump in and then keep on keeping on. All right. One more. If you were not elected, will you run again? I know I said there'd be one, but I lied. I'm like that psycho spin instructor who's like, 60 seconds. And what I meant was in 60 seconds, you'll have 60 seconds more. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, flip. Maybe ask November or October, as the case may be. Yup. Maybe someday. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, Drew, if you could give us a summarization in 90 seconds, and then we'll just continue along that way. Oh, 2 minutes. You're right. I did say 2 minutes. Go.
Like I just said, I would run again. Really feel like, I mean, it's really hard to take 3 years of doing something and then stop doing it. I'm not saying that I would stop working, but just being on the board, you get so much more knowledge into helping with, whatever, like with travel and stuff, you get a little bit more access that really does help doing what you're doing. And in 3 years, I really feel like it's just like growing up. I'm in toddler phase of being a board member. I would like to enter high school, if I carry on the analogy. And I think that if I wasn't reelected, it's not that I wouldn't come back, it just kind of hinders that a little bit. There's a little bit more of a regrowth then. When you come back, you have to learn some of the things that may have changed while you weren't on the board. And I really just feel like continuation of that just really helps solidify, and you can fine tune things and be way more successful than I was on my first term, for sure.
Thank you.
Elected or not, I'll still be around. So make your choices. There are people here who certainly have greater qualifications than I do, and I recognize that, and I honor them because they stepped up into this firing squad situation, which apparently over 4,000 other people didn't want to do. So thanks everybody for that, and there you go, make your choices.
Yep, I'm just gonna keep volunteering, hopefully get, deeper in. If anybody needs my help, for whatever reason, I'm here. I have always wanted to run for the board. I thought it would be a couple years down the line after I had some time, but given the capital campaign and finding a new home, I thought, why not now? So I'm here to learn. I'm here to be help where I can, and I look forward to sitting at the table.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I have never led a capital campaign before. I've been involved in several of them, and one of the keys to that is engaging membership and having people stuck in. That's our language here. There's a research has its own language, but let's use our language. Getting stuck in is the key to having people who are committed to helping us find and build a new home. And to do that, though, we also need to make sure that the folks who are leading that campaign, which is going to take time and effort and is going to be, let's not sugarcoat it, it's going to be stressful for the folks who are leading that. So we need to do everything we can now to proactively get more folks stuck in and get their hands on the oars so that we can keep moving forward into our bright, brand new, shiny home. And we have a bright, brand new, shiny stadium, so let's get them to match. I will work on that as either as an elected board member or as a normal member. We'll see what happens. So that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to continuing the work that I've done the last 3 years. Hopefully leave the board in a better place. I'm looking forward to picking up some of the things we said we were going to do this year, but sort of got sidetracked by that whole battle. But I think we've made a lot of progress the last 3 years. I think we're moving the work forward, and I look forward to continuing that work.
All right. So first of all, round of applause for all of our candidates. Not an easy thing to do. I'm gonna ask our 107 secretary if she'll just take these questions that we didn't get to, maybe just do a generic thread on them in the forum. And then if you've got questions that didn't get asked here, they will be posted to the forum on your behalf. So we still preserve that anonymity that we had. And so yeah, go out, use the forums. When does voting open?
Second.
Opens the 2nd. It'll run for 1 week, right? All right. What?
2nd through the 8th.
2nd through the 8th. All right, thank you very much. We're around. We have the space for like 25 more minutes, so meet the candidates, have some questions, and thanks to McMenam's as well.